Hey, welcome back to Two Super Guys Trade Stocks. I'm Dylan.
And I'm Vinny.
This is a big day. All right, it's the final countdown for those of you who are in the TLT trade. I am loading up. There are three huge events that just happened this week and one that's about to happen. So, big news. We're going to talk about it, and I want your honest opinions.
The final countdown.
Two Super Guys Trade Stocks.
I was going to get the audio for the final countdown, but then my baby threw up on me, so I didn't. Didn't
Perfect.
have time. Yeah.
I think I did a great rendition of it right there.
So, Canada becomes the first G7 nation to cut interest rates. All right. That happened Wednesday in a widely expected move that will ease pressure on highly indebted consumers, but indicated further easing would be gradual and dependent on data. Now, the reason why Canada is important, I'm going to show you some charts, but we've essentially not been identically following them, but fairly close. Our Fed and Bank of Canada doing very similar things. Now, there is a little bit of a difference here, which is why I don't think we're going to get a cut in June or even July, just to be clear, but soon. So, basically, they stress that the time of the next cut would be dependent on, actual inflation data. And then there's a note here that U.S. inflation is stickier and markets expect the Federal Reserve will cut rates only once this year. I mostly agree with that. Now, why is that? All right. Core inflation in Canada has slowed much faster in the U.S. You have your light green in Canada and you have your dark green in the U.S.
Wow.
Now, yeah, I know. Kind of wild. Now,
Yeah, it's pretty startling difference for Canada, America Junior. Sorry.
Yeah, American Junior. It is a kind of a large difference. There's multiple reasons for that I'm not going to get into. That's going to be like 9 hours. But it's more important. The consumer for Canada is having a much more difficult time, specifically the housing market, than we are. So they definitely need a rate cut. Now, what am I talking about? Canadian households, now considered to hold the biggest debt among G7 countries, took out variable rate mortgages. We don't really have a lot of those here in the United States.
Very rare.
And they did that at historic lows, and then a series of hikes put a lot of people not having a good time. Essentially, there's a large percentage. It's 25% of all mortgages were variable rate mortgages, and the vast majority of those are doing interest-only payments, while the principal is piling up. They're actually losing money each month.
Lovely.
Not
it's interesting
good.
how differently real estate is financed across the world, because that's common in the UK too, is variable rate mortgages.
Yeah. And so this is really weird. I actually did not know this. So the second part of this, meanwhile, fixed rate mortgage holders will likely see a payment shock when their mortgages renew in the coming months. So unlike here, Canadian mortgages renew once in 3 or 5 years. So it's a 5-year mortgage, basically, amortized over 25 years. So even if you got a solid rate on a fixed rate mortgage in 2020, 2025, your payment's going to change. It's odd. To me, that's quite odd. But
ours change. So mine changes yearly when it comes down to real estate taxes and property insurance. I just got it the other day. It went up like a $90 per month.
But the rate
on
doesn't.
Like a $2,400 mortgage is not like a huge amount, but
right. But that's property tax, and then if you have PMI, this is rate.
Nope. Yeah, no PMI. My homeowner's insurance goes into escrow. That's what it's for too.
Right. That's fair. We did multiple videos on this. Change your insurance.
Yep.
I'm not going to harp that anymore. It's a big deal. I saved 60%. So here's the rates over time. Now, the dark blue here, this is a projection. This is not real. Okay? But you have your Bank of Canada and Fed policy rates divergence. So we've been fairly close for 20 years, maybe a half percentage off. They are expecting a much bigger divergence than we've ever had before. But I just want to show you that chart because that's kind of a big deal. Now, what else happened? Europe also cut. All right. Now, we have less in common with them and how they do things, but the big news is Canada cut, then right after, Europe cut. All right? They said the same thing hey, we need more data before we know if we're going to do more cuts.
Okay.
This is kind of a cool chart. Now, this is an estimation, but they were correct. So this is major central banks poised to embark on a cutting cycle. So the purple's cuts, the red or orange. I'm kind of colorblind. Is that red or orange? Or
It's kind of an orange.
I'll take it. That's
Salmon.
Japan has the only rate. Oh, are you too?
No, I'm saying it looks more like salmon to me than it does anything else,
Oh,
probably.
okay. I can't tell
Salmon.
the difference. That's all the same. But they're not having anything for U.S. as cutting until September 18th. Okay.
Okay.
I actually think that's possible, to be honest with you. Now, what's the other
Possibly.
big data point for TLT, baby? Monthly
Yep.
job creation in the U.S. All right. We thought that there was going to be a big problem. We thought that, oh, there's going to be no more jobs. Unemployment's going to shoot up. And you initially see the numbers, and you're like, oh,
Uh-huh.
we're fine. We're still killing it. We're relatively fine. But let's
Sure.
dig into those numbers, shall we?
Okay.
So on the surface, the report was hot, but you've also got a bigger drop in house employment. For what it's worth, it tends to be a more accurate signal when you're at an inflection point in the economy. You can find weakness in underlying numbers, meaning, hey, the numbers were solid, but unemployment still increased. That's essentially what this is saying.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah. Okay.
this chart going from April to 22 is now it's cut off because it was still waiting on the data, and there's too
Uh-huh.
many. Bloomberg kept asking me to pay for it. I refused. But
I love it.
imagine there's a 4 right there for the next
Yeah.
month. It saved me $1.99, so big deal.
I can picture the 4.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
And we had talked earlier that you have a slow increase in unemployment and then kind of a very rapid increase in unemployment. Is that the inflection point we're at? We're not sure.
No.
I would say no, but I would say we're very, very close. Unfortunately, because our inflation is so much stickier, which I don't think everyone truly understands why, corporate greed's a big part of it. We also did a
Not
video on that.
helping. Yeah.
Because of that, we need to keep rates as high and stress the economy for as long as possible.
Yeah.
Cutting now, even though I would make a lot of money on it, would not be a good idea. That would completely understand that. Now,
Yep.
here's TLT. All right. Your blue is your 200 small moving average. This is not a stock. Now, I will say it weirdly respects small moving averages and support and resistance lines, which you're like, hey, TLT is, a series of 20-year bonds. Why that should matter. I don't know. I don't have an answer for you. It does though.
Yeah.
You just zoom out and it respects even the 9 EMA here, this dash line. I don't get it. But you can see we actually broke some trend lines here. Uh-oh.
Yeah. Yeah. Testing it from the top side,
Yeah.
which is what you want to
Usually
see,
tends
right?
to happen.
Yeah.
So for me, I am loading up. I'm no longer doing wheels. I'm now just trying to accumulate as much as possible. My accumulation that I'm trying to get through is 87 to 92. There are
Okay.
some people who commented that got it like at 83. Good job. You guys killed it. I'm very jealous. I got so greedy. I do that every time.
Yeah. It happens. I mean, I think you're still gonna have time. I know you're saying now September maybe for like the Fed cut.
You
I
just I
I
just
don't
want to
know.
be in before the first cut, and I think the first cut will be this year. So that's 6 months. I'm not saying right now. I'm
Yeah.
saying now you're in the loading zone of 87 to 92. I don't think it's going to go lower than 87. I would be
Yeah.
surprised. If it does, good news.
I'm thinking we might get a token cut at the December meeting. Honestly, Powell has been very consistent, and he's referenced Volcker and keeping at it, quote unquote, multiple times. And that is Paul Volcker's biography talking about many things, but in particular, the inflation cycles of the 1970s and how
Yep.
their major mistake was cutting too soon. And I think, if anything, Powell is actually going to do the same thing he did when it came to raising rates. He's going to wait too long. He'd rather wait too long to cut rates than he would too early. That's the
I
direction
agree.
in which he will choose to err. and that may be a token rate decrease in December, but I think they're going to be by far and away the last reserve as far as cutting rates.
I agree. They probably will. Well, I think Japan will be the last. They're still doing rate hikes, so I'm going to throw them out because they're going to be last in my opinion.
Yeah,
Um,
different problem.
yeah, whole different deal. Um, but I do think I'm feeling. Do you have the
Yeah, I
when
have
the
the
dates
chart
are?
up. These are the dates we have left this year for Federal Reserve meetings. The June 1, 11 to 12. So that's this week. And the cool thing is that little star right there tells you we're going to get an SEP. So we're going to get a dot plot out of this. We're going to get to see what they think is going to happen for the rest of the year. Then we have one at the end of July, September, November, and then December 17th, 18th. Like I said, I think that might be like the Christmas present Jerome Powell will give us is the 25 basis point cut, just to say like, yeah, see, we did it before the end of the year, just barely by the skin of our teeth, but we did it.
I actually think it's going to be November.
You think it might be November?
I have been right every time, except for the
Sure.
times that I was wrong.
Yeah. 60% of the time it works every time.
But yeah, I'm loading up as much as possible between that range. Um, Obviously, I could be completely wrong and lose everything, so please do not follow me into this. I'm just going to throw that
Yeah.
out there. I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah.
Love it.
All right,
All
guys.
right. Catch you next one.